Welcome to the Sober Bartender podcast. I'm your host, Brandi Kelly. Today is an exciting day. Today, I am going to share my story. I really hope you get something out of it. It's been quite a ride. My story starts. I was born in the LDS hospital in Salt Lake City, Utah, in 1984. My parents had me very young. My mom was in high school, and they got married shortly after I was born and divorced shortly after that. So, having two households was a little challenging, but not completely out of the normal. Um, when I was nine, we moved to when I was nine, we moved to Laughlin, Nevada, which is on the Colorado River border of Arizona, and that is where, for the most part, I grew up. So my first drink was around 9 years old, 8 or 9 years old. I can clearly remember, and mind you, this is not including my grandpa giving me sips of his Coors so that he could see my bitter beer face. But the first time I intentionally took a drink, I was pretty young. And I remember my stepdad had a bottle of Cuervo on the fridge in our apartment. And I didn't, I don't remember being told, like, don't drink that or it was just, it was out of my reach and I knew I shouldn't have it. So I would get home from school, and there was a time where I was there by myself until I don't, yeah, like somebody came home shortly after I got home. But I remember climbing up onto the counter and getting the bottle down and pouring some Jose Cuervo into a glass. And I drank it and I got really, really sick. But it was like I was so excited about the idea of what I shouldn't have. And fast forward, a lot of people live between Bullhead City and Laughlin because they're 10 minutes away from each other, just over the bridge. So I was living in Bullhead City when my mom and my stepdad decided to divorce, and that was a really pivotal time for me because I was very angry. So I didn't really start lashing out until I was about 12 years old. It was very apparent that I was just angry, I was depressed, I was confused, between hormones and parents' divorce. I just, I really went deep into the other direction. So I started running around with, the rougher crowd. I started experimenting with drugs. Um, I started drinking, but it didn't really grab a hold of me. Like I was able to do it like socially. Like I wanted to be accepted, and I definitely wanted to change the way that I think and feel. And that has been a theme throughout my life. So I started around 12 years old using drugs, alcohol, people, trouble, whatever I could do to just escape myself. Um, I had my mom at home who always offered she always offered love. She always offered a safe place. And so a big theme in my life, I always see, the fork in the road. And one way is like light and love, and the other way is like a dark, scary jungle. And I've just always veered towards the dark, uh, and really taken the harder road. Um, but it wasn't, my path wasn't because I didn't have the option to have a better life. I just always chose the more difficult path. Um, through junior high and high school, I did get into some trouble. I got arrested for minor consumption of alcohol. I had to do some community service, broke my mom's heart over and over. We had a really, really rocky relationship through that time. I was a scary person. Like, I was hospitalized for anxiety and depression around 13 years old. Um, I wasn't willing to accept any help. I wasn't willing to do any work. I just kind of pushed everything good for me away, and then I just really embraced anything that I felt wasn't, like, anything that I knew kind of wasn't good for me. Like, I only wanted that. So I did graduate high school and had a series of jobs, and had boyfriends, and it was at 19 years old that I got invited to work at a place called the Inferno in Bullhead City, Arizona, and it was the hottest bar in town, and there's air quotes there because it was something. So I went to work at the Inferno, and there was no real training or anything, and I wasn't allowed to drink. You can serve in the state of Arizona at 19, but you can't drink until you're 21. So I started drinking when I was off work. It was kind of the people that went in there were, kind of rough. Like, I don't know, they were good old boys. But still the roughest customers that I ever had. Like, now if somebody took their glass and they pounded it on the bar because they wanted another drink, I would definitely throw them out. But in my first bartending job, that was a term of endearment. And that was, that's just the way that it was. So um looking back, I see that there was issues in my drinking even back then, because I would be off work and I lived in a single wide trailer. um I should include my mom and my family they moved to Hemet, California while I was still living in Bullhead. So I had my own trailer that I rented from my grandma Laura, and it had, a fenced yard, and I had a dog, and life was all right. But I was like binge drinking. I would drink and drink and drink till I blacked out, but I didn't do that every day. But I remember driving my car, and I couldn't really steadily drive. So I would just rev all the way down and then kind of coast. And it was a smaller town, and how I never got a DUI there, I have no idea. But while I was working at the Inferno, I met this big biker dude who, he looked different than anybody that I knew. He looked exciting, he looked dangerous, and that same mentality of when I was a kid of like, I want to escape myself, I want an adventure, I want to go explore the unknown. So after about 5 months of dating, he kind of told me, like, you're way too cool for this trailer. Like, do you want to go live in Scottsdale with me? And I was like, yeah. So I jumped on the back of his motorcycle. I should include that he's in a motorcycle club. I took off with this Hell's Angel, not knowing where he lived. I had never been there before. I left my apartment, my dog, my car. I called my best friend Bobby, and I was like, hey, the keys are under the mat. Like, just left my car in a casino parking lot, and off I went. So I moved to Scottsdale, and this is 2004. And already in that time, drinking like every weekend, not necessarily every day, blacking out pretty often. I start bartending. I, of course, lie about the fact that I'm not 21, because I know that legally I can serve in the state. So I'm bartending, and I'm going in, I'm hanging out and drinking in my off time. And I did turn 21 while working there, and they were not very happy about that. But life wasn't too bad. It was like everything was kind of an adventure. I was really kind of struggling with being in a town where I didn't know anybody, and drinking kind of helped me bond in that way. So 2 years later, 2006, my then boyfriend wants to move to Las Vegas. And Las Vegas is about an hour and a half from where I grew up. So I'm like, sounds good. I'm always up for whatever. I'm still kind of up for any adventure, except now I do things a little differently. But we moved to Las Vegas in summer of 2006, and I'm bartending again. I have, a little bit of an issue getting a job, but not too bad. And there was like from 2006 to, I don't know, I want to say 2014, things really escalated. So like, I ended up landing in a bar that I absolutely loved. I was working at Copper Cake St. Rose, and my home life was a little chaotic. I was kind of just casually using drugs, but not like regularly. I didn't really consider myself to have a drug problem, but my drinking definitely increased because, while working, it wasn't allowed, quote unquote, but it wasn't totally against the rules to do shots while you're working. So it would be pretty normal for me to have 7 to 10 shots in the course of my shift. But I was on my feet, I was moving around, so that was no big deal. But then by the time I get off work, I've already got, a halfway decent buzz, and then it's my time to drink. So I got into the habit of just really drinking regularly. But during that time, like I was boxing, like I was training for half marathons. In 2012, I competed in a Fitness America pageant. And like I didn't really cut out the drinking for any of that, except there was 6 weeks before the Fitness America where I did not drink because I really wanted to show good on stage. Like it was like a bikini bodybuilding show. So I really applied myself. I didn't place, but I was really proud of myself for just adhering to like a really strict regimen and following through. But I missed my alcohol. Like I really, really missed it. I had a great showing from my coworkers and my customers, like my friend group. Like they showed up, and I had the biggest cheering section, and they all had ping pong paddles with my face on them. And when I got off the stage after judging, everybody had either a mimosa or a shot of vodka because I could finally have a drink. And like that seemed so normal to me. So yes, after that show, that was the 2012 show, I just wanted flour, I wanted cheese, and I wanted booze. And I overindulged in all of them. Within hours, I was puking and rallying. Like I had like 3 different kinds of sangria, everything with flour on the menu at this little, at Firefly in Vegas, a tapas place. But that wasn't alarming to me. Like that, being a bartender, that just seemed normal, right? Like I set goals, I achieved the goals, and then I deserved a party. My next show was a year or 2 later, and I did not have as much success. Also during that time, I was experimenting with different hormones. Like I tried, I think I tried injecting testosterone. I was on like human growth hormone for quite a while. Like I was definitely willing to try anything. The second show, I would not cut out the drink. I limited it, which I felt I should get like a gold star, but it definitely didn't cut in my abs. I didn't show up as tight or as toned, even though I was working out, an hour in the morning or 2 hours in the morning and an hour at night. I would get off work at midnight and I would go do an hour of cardio, but I would do it with 4 or 5 shots in me. So that was really disappointing. But also during that time, there was my home life, and there was a lot of trying to balance. Like definitely it was like a fun lifestyle. It wasn't all bad. But it was like, we party when we party, but then it's time to get back to life. And I had a really hard time getting back to life. Like life was still a party for me, and I didn't really have an off switch. So instead of acknowledging that or addressing that or looking within to see what I could do differently. I just hid it. I just lied about it. I I chose to do whatever I could to kind of protect what I thought was necessary for me, which was by about 2013, around there. That was, like doing little bumps of coke at work and drinking heavily. So by yeah, but I think it was 2013 or 14, my then boyfriend had pretty much had enough. Um I really felt like I was a victim. I felt like I was being abandoned. I felt like he was giving up. And in reality, I was not willing to look at myself and look at the fact that, A, that probably wasn't a very healthy relationship for me to begin with. But B, I wasn't a healthy person. I wasn't being a healthy partner. Like, I was always hiding drugs. I was lying about doing drugs. I was drinking like heavily and excessively. um, there's a rideshare service called Designated Drivers in Las Vegas. Barry and his wife are angels. Um, you basically call a number and they come and pick up you and your car. So it's a husband and wife team, and then they do partner with somebody else. But for the most part, I did get Barry and his wife. But they come and they pick up your car, and one drives you and your car, and then the other follows, and then they get your car home. So I probably used that service just to get home from work. Like, I don't know, probably 4 nights a week for almost a year. And there was cameras that we had on the outside of my house, so I would have them drop me off on the corner, and then I would drive into the driveway so that my then boyfriend wouldn't know, that I couldn't drive myself home safely. Um, I when he just confronted me and said, like, we're on different paths. Like, you obviously want to do that, and I don't want to do that. So just go do that, and I'm gonna go do what I want to do. I went into the most toxic mode, like threatening suicide, just swearing up and down and all around that I would change, and this started out when I was 19, but at this point I'm 30. And I never really, like, I improved outwardly, but inwardly I didn't ever do anything, big or good for myself. Um I really started to crumble. So I talked him into staying for another year, despite him wanting to go. And that was the most toxic year. I don't know, I don't want to say the most toxic year, but that was one of the most toxic times of my life. Um, he didn't want to be there. I could feel that. So I was like desperate for the approval and the affection, and he was really resentful to me. So I won't go into depth about what went on, but it wasn't good. And I still continued. I did not keep any of my promises. I still continued to outwardly try to present what I thought was expected of me, while inwardly, like, I was still drinking. I was hiding cigarettes too. I really liked to try to get away with things. Like, I liked to still do what I wanted, but to try to tell you that I was doing what you expected. Um, so in October of 2014, I had then been at Copper Keg St. Rose for 7 years. I had been dating the biker dude um, for 11 years, and he wanted to move to California. Like, he wanted to be out there. There was things that he wanted to pursue. And he strongly suggested that I stay in Las Vegas and just do my thing. I owned my home at that time. It was not in both of our names. It was in my name, and I had bought it for a really good deal. So he really strongly urged me to stay, and I insisted that I go because I could not fathom losing this relationship despite it being extremely toxic on both ends. So he packed up and he moved, and I sold the house, and I packed up and I followed him. And it was bad. So I moved to Lake Elsinore, California in October of 2014. And it was shortly after that. I was still, drinking. I didn't have drugs there, but I was drinking, and I was drinking the way I like to drink, and I wasn't working yet. And it took maybe 3 weeks for everything to blow up, and it was over me hiding cigarettes. But it was just, the straw that broke the camel's back. That relationship was done, and it should have been done long before. But he kind of he hit his limit with my behavior, and I hit my limit with what I was willing to put myself through and what I was willing to tolerate. And so my mom lives in California, so I was about an hour away from my mom. So I loaded up just a bag in my little Honda Civic, and I left my new California house where I just moved all the furniture and the dogs and the life, and went to my mom's. And of course, my mom was happy to have me, and probably really relieved that that whole thing was hopefully over. And it took a few months for it to be over, but in that time, I had just sold the house. I made a big chunk of money. I gave some to him because we were a couple. So I had about $38,000 at my disposal, just in my checking account. I had some debt. I owed the IRS money. I could have paid those things off. And instead, I helped my mom out a little bit. I did get a job for a couple days, but it took me 5 months to drink $38,000. We had one good Christmas in there. I moved in October of 2014, and I was broke by March of 2015. I went from, it was at my mom's house that I would wake up in the morning and I would have coffee with her, except she had coffee and I had a coffee cup with Tito's in it. And there were several times where she came to me and she said, like, you have a problem, right? And I was just, yeah. Like, I know, I just don't care. So I got really toxic then. I didn't know how to be an adult. I didn't know I was so codependent. Like, I didn't know how to function without the structure of trying to please someone. I didn't know who I was or what I wanted or what I was going to do. So, I lived on my mom's couch for 5 months. I was extremely drunk the entire time. I had a job in Temecula, California. I would get drunk all day, take naps / pass out during the day, and then I would drive on a dark, windy road to Temecula, and I cocktailed there and I drank while I worked there. And I did make one friend there, and I was really glad to have a friend. And sometimes I would stay with her, and she lived with her parents as well. Sometimes I would stay with her so that I didn't have to drive all the way home. And then that job only lasted like 3 months. There's like a nightclub type thing, but yeah, I went and I hung out with her one night, and she was hanging out with friends, and they decided to do some meth, and I tried a tiny bit, and I hadn't really messed with that in years, except, well, I don't want to say I hadn't done it at all, but I knew that it wasn't a good thing because I was already out of control with the alcohol. So after deciding to put that into my body, I decided to distance myself from her. I, quit the job. Then I was just kind of pinching pennies together so that I could buy Four Locos, because that was kind of the best bang for my buck, because I needed to drink every day. I was shaking if I didn't drink by that point. I had a friend in Vegas who was, kind of shocked with the divorce, and he and I were kind of commiserating over the phone. And after a little bit of that, he kind of was like, get your head out of your ass, get back to Vegas. I'll help you get on your feet. And, that sounded like the solution. Like, living on my mom's couch was the problem. Being able to drink all day was the problem. Not having a job was the problem. So I jumped in my little Honda Civic and I went down there, and I instantly latched onto him. So this man, like, blindsided by a divorce, probably not in a very healthy mental state either. I think he may have had some good intentions, but also I think he just didn't want to be alone in that time. And like I said, I latched right on. He was not a big fan of how much I drank because I would drink first thing in the morning. So I kind of tried to reel it in for his approval. So I found someone else to kind of tell me how to be and how to live. And I got a job, and I did not like that job. I wanted to go back to my old job, but between, they were apprehensive between, just having broken up after 11 years with, a guy that was in a motorcycle club, um, and my behavior. I was like sleeping in my car sometimes. I think I slept in a booth one time because, I left a somewhat together shit show and I came back not put together whatsoever. So my fall from grace, 5 months is pretty much what it takes. It's my breaking point. So yeah, I'm in Vegas, I'm working, I'm dating this guy. I say we're dating and he says we're just friends and hanging out, and I'm, just kind of forcing my will. Like I'm decided in my mind that I can, set my mind to anything and I can make it happen. So I just am fully latched on. He's not in the same place. So we party, we have some fun. We do move in together. And yeah, there was times during that time where I didn't work and I hid my drinking, and I would drink but then go to the gym. I would like make him food and try to hide the fact that I was like drunk, or I was, high on coke and drunk. And yeah, I just repeated that same cycle. But fortunately it didn't go on for too long. He decided that he was done and ready to move on. And I was devastated, like completely devastated. And I don't think that it was entirely because I was devastated about that relationship. I think I never healed from the previous one. I never dealt with those feelings because I just stuffed them and replaced them. So the big brunt of my abandonment issues and my, feeling of loss came out on this guy. And it was ugly. So he left and went on to pursue what was for him. And I had these 2 dogs, I had this condo, and I remember having I had a bottle of vodka on the counter, and I remember opening it in the morning. And I remember pouring myself a drink, and it had been maybe 2 years since I had like let myself drink the way I drank at my mom's. And I remember just the fuck it. And like I decided that I was going to drink in the morning. Like I purposely thought like I need to change the way I think and the way I feel. And I went for it. And I started dating somebody else right away. He was a really, really good guy. He was very kind, very loving. He kind of came in to save the day, and I was just still a user. I was still really damaged. I tried to push him away, but he, was willing to kind of stick through that. And so we ended up moving in together. We ended up not buying a house, but renting a house. We had a pool. We had a life. He has a great family. He was willing to put up with my shit, and he drank like me. So this guy proposes, and there's talk of like kids, and I'm feeling like this could be a thing. Like this could be my chance to be somebody other than who I've been. But I'm miserable in my drinking. Like I'm going through a liter of Tito's a day, and I'm starting to get a little bit desperate. I'm realizing that I don't want to drink like I do, but I can't not. Like we went on a family vacation with his family to Tahoe. We went to Tahoe every summer. I think I went 2 or 3. And everybody wanted to go meet for breakfast. And I woke up and I didn't have a drink first. And they didn't serve alcohol at the place that we were at. And everybody saw how bad I was shaking and how sick I was. And I had to actually leave and walk down the road and find a bar and have a couple shots of vodka so that I could go and eat breakfast with the family. I would drink every single morning before work. Like I started the shower. I worked the time that we were together. I worked the day shift. So I worked 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. So I would start the shower. And while that was warming up, I would go out and I would pour myself, a couple shots of Tito's just so that I could start my day. And I would do a couple bumps of cocaine so that I could start my day. And it wasn't ever like big old long lines. I didn't really think of myself as having a problem because it was just a little bit. Like it just helped me get up and going. So yeah, somewhere I think it was 2019, I got a call at work. He and I were then engaged. And I got a call at work that he had called an ambulance. He thought he was having a stroke. And I worked 4 minutes away. So I rushed home. I did a bump, I did a shot, and then I rushed home so that I could ride in the ambulance with him and get to St. Rose Hospital. And, I make sure like he's way out of it. His blood pressure was out of control. I would made sure that I told the doctors, he has a huge drinking problem. Like he's going to have an issue. Like he's going to go into DTs if you don't treat that. And he didn't want them to know that. He probably didn't want his parents to know that, but I didn't want them to know anything except for that. Like that was important. So he was in the hospital for 3 or 4 days. I really don't know, but me sitting in the hospital with him, like I refused to leave his side. I did not go home, like once he was in a hospital room. But I didn't want to tell the doctors or the nurses that I was going through DTs. Like I was violently ill sitting there with him. So like I called his brother and asked him to bring me just a coffee, a to-go coffee cup, a thermos full of vodka so that I could get through. And that was kind of when I recognized how bad I was. Like that's where I recognized that I'm not okay. And we got home from the hospital and he had meds to help with the DTs because he was not allowed to drink. It was his blood pressure. I didn't know he was supposed to be on blood pressure meds, but yeah, his blood pressure had just gotten out of control. So he started, managing that. Ultimately, he transitioned back into drinking. But during that time where he couldn't drink, I started drinking in the closet, literally. Like I'm in a closet right now, but I'm doing something good. But then I was in a closet and I had my bottle of Tito's hidden. And I kind of reached out to a couple people in my friend's circle. One of my friends is a nurse, Lynn, and she just said, whatever you do, don't go cold turkey. Alcohol can kill you if you quit drinking cold turkey. So I started measuring my shots. So I was doing, about 2 ounces every hour. And that didn't get me drunk. That was just so that I could maintain. And I was able to do that for like a day or two, but then I would just go in and just chug on the bottle. And I don't know how long it took. I don't know how long it took for me to just actually get help, but it felt like it was about a year of me saying this is out of control. Like I need to stop and I can't. I would wake up in the morning and tell myself I'm not going to take the first drink today. And I had no ability to not take the first drink. And the first drink just led to all the drinks. And every single day it was tomorrow. I'm going to start, I'm going to stop tomorrow. I'm going to do something tomorrow. And there was a lot of tomorrows that came and went and I didn't do anything different. I did about $100 a day of Coke and I drank, a half a gallon of Tito's. And, I didn't lose my job. I would get suspended. I hit some curbs. I I stopped contributing to bills pretty early on and just spent my money on alcohol and drugs, and the boyfriend paid the bills. I was kind of a user, and yeah, I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was really just surviving, and I was selfish and I was self-centered, and I really didn't see it that way. So June of 2019, I've had enough. I've had enough of life. There were many times where I just wanted to either be able to stop or to die. So I got out my insurance card because I still had health insurance, and I called the number on the back, the mental health services on the back of my insurance card. And I was directed to Nevada Behavioral Health. So Nevada Behavioral Health brought me in for an assessment. I had to drink excessively just to get into this assessment because I was terrified. So I meet the guy, Ricardo. I'll never forget Ricardo. He seemed like such an asshole. So I meet Ricardo, and he's asking me all these questions, and I'm hardly honest, just trying to just kind of glaze over the top of what I think that he needs to know. And he's like, well, yeah, you've got advanced alcoholism. Like I don't remember the term that he used, but he said, I really think that you need inpatient treatment. And I'm like, whoa. I am not that bad. Like, I don't need to go inpatient. I just need help stopping. So I will mention, though, that a friend of mine, a fellow bartender who also drank like me, had reached out a couple weeks before and told me that she was going to detox. She said, I'm not quitting forever, but I'm going just so I can get a handle on this. And that planted like the little seed in my brain. And that's what brought me to call the number on my insurance card. So I definitely don't want to leave that out, because I don't think I would be here if it hadn't been for her sharing that she took that step. So you know who you are. I hope you hear this. You're amazing. Thank you. So yes. So I'm in my assessment, and I think I know better, and I think that I'm better than, the person who does this for a living thinks I am. So I'm like, what can I do that's just like the minimum? Just, I just need to stop. So he sends me to Monte Vista for a detox. And Monte Vista is, excuse me, Monte Vista is the same hospital that I was hospitalized at when I was 13 for anxiety and depression. And now here I am, I think 35, 36, maybe just turned 36. And June 25th, 2019, I am back in Monte Vista Hospital, except this time I'm there for chronic alcoholism. The day I was going to detox, I did as much cocaine as I could, and I pounded vodka. And I remember that song "Don't Let Me Down" by the Chainsmokers. I was playing that song, like I played it in my car, and I was playing it at work. And I was just really trying to hype myself up, because it's terrifying. Like, alcohol was my one constant in my adult life. Like, that was the one best friend. Like, Uncle Tito was, always there for me. So it was terrifying, the thought of separating myself from this thing, but also it just felt like I had to do it. I could not go on the way that I was living. I couldn't. I either wanted to die or I wanted to stop, like I said. So I got home from work. I told my fiance, I'm probably going to fight you. Don't let me fight. Don't let me back out. Just get me there, and don't let me change my mind, because I will. And I don't remember getting there. My blood alcohol content was obscene, near death. I wish I could remember the number. It's not on my records, but just for the story's sake, like I believe it's like a 0.4. Like, they said it was a miracle that I survived, because my liver enzymes, your liver enzymes which I never thought of, never even thought about my liver. Sometimes I felt like it might be hurting, but your liver enzyme should be in the high teens. It should be like a 16, 17, 18. My liver enzymes were in the high 400s. I did not have liver disease. I did not have cirrhosis yet. But I was on my way. There's definitely so many times where I drank so much that I could easily have not woken up. And when I did wake up, I felt like death. And the only thing that felt better was to drink more. So I wake up at detox and I feel miserable and I feel terrified and I feel like this was a mistake and I'm questioning everything and I'm not as bad as these people that are around me and I'm judging everyone and I'm, crawling out of my skin and they're like checking my, they're checking like my heart rate and my blood pressure like every 15 minutes. Like it just so uncomfortable. And I'm still not taking any accountability. I'm not looking at the fact that I got myself there. So yeah, I'm in detox and I start talking to people and they're like, yeah, this is my third time here. Yeah, this is my fifth time here. And I'm like, wait, so this doesn't work, right? Like you have to come back. Like, why'd you have to come back? Like, I'm thinking this is my cure all. Like, I'm going to come into detox. I'm going to go out and I'm not going to drink for, 6 months. And then I'm going to be able to just drink at family functions and, drink on holidays and special occasions. And I'm going to be able to toast at my wedding. And like, this is my unrealistic expectation that I've played out. Like, I have this picture in my mind. And people are mentioning like you can never drink again. And I'm like, yeah, you can never drink again. Like, I'm going to drink again. I'm just not going to drink like this because then I'm going to know better. And while I was in there, I went to, they have meetings, they bring meetings in there. And there was a meeting in the cafeteria. So I went to that, an AA meeting. And the guy that was running the meeting was like, yeah, I went to detox here. And I was in treatment here. And so now I like to come back and help other people, get sober. And in my head, I was judging him and thinking like, what a loser. Like, it's like 8 at night. Like, what's this dude doing? Like, he has no life. This is what he does. Oh, so, yes, that was my first experience with AA. Before that, in the bar, me and my Sunday regulars, we called ourselves AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And we called people who went to AA quitters. And we thought we were hilarious. So I got out of detox and part of my aftercare was IOP, intensive outpatient treatment. So I've committed to this. It's 3 hours a day, 3 days a week. And they put me on a lot of meds right when I got out of detox, Xanax. I don't do meds. I don't do pills. It just does not work for me. So I went to a psychiatrist thinking that I would have talk therapy. That was not the case. They just prescribed me a bunch of things. So I immediately worked on weaning myself off of those. I think I was medically assisted weaning off, but I was not willing to take those things. I did go to IOP for about 8 or 9 months. And in intensive outpatient treatment, you learn about your ism. You learn about your brain and why you do the things you do. So it's a deterrent. But it wasn't necessarily the support that I needed, but the people that were in there was a pretty rough crew. Like the people that went to my program, a lot of them lived in sober living. They're in Las Vegas. I once again latched onto the wrong people. They did get me to meetings, but I latched onto the trouble. things at home were not good. I could not stand to be in my house once I was sober. I couldn't stand my then fiance once I was sober. I felt guilt, shame, remorse, and I felt like zero attraction. I felt like I used him to provide myself with a cushy life. And doing that drunk, it was easy, but doing it sober, I couldn't really do it. And I wasn't willing to stick it out to find out if we could have made it through that. There was too much. So I got out of detox in June and I moved out in September. I moved into my best friend Candy's house. I moved in with Johnny and Candy. Candy has been my rock for years and years. She's loved me through good, bad, ugly, thick, thin. When I was living in that condo after that second breakup, she really pushed me just to, she lived right around the corner and she pushed me to just, come over to, just to come back to life because I was really just working and walking my dogs. I didn't have any motivation to do anything but drink. So I am forever grateful to her. She's definitely, she's half my heart. But I move into Johnny and Candy's and, I'm doing my detox thing and my outpatient thing and I'm working and kind of just, I went right back to the bar. Like I went right back to working, but I didn't drink. I had other alcoholics numbers that I would just text them, good morning, or I would, I would do what I could do. But I didn't drink. I was determined not to go through that whole detox process again. And I felt pretty good until about month 3. And I was really squirrely. I was like, okay, I'm not drinking, but I don't feel better. I don't know how to live like this. Like there was no relief. It was just, alcohol was my solution. And you take that away. And then I kind of, cleared out the fog that I was in, like that heavy weight that I always carried from being drunk. But once that was gone, all my shit that I carried around, like all my discomfort and, the me that I've been running from since I was 12 years old was like front and center. And I didn't know how to live with that. So I did reach out. There was a woman in a meeting and I asked her to be my sponsor. She was kind of loud and outspoken and, kind of wild. And so I was like, okay, she looks like she can still have fun and be sober. Like that's what I want. So they say when you're looking for a sponsor, to find someone who has what you want. So we hit it off right away. I was really active in meetings. I went to, I just said yes. I went to meetings all over town. I kind of, joined up with some really good gals that walked me through. There was some negativity there while I was getting sober in Vegas. I made some poor choices in sobriety. I didn't drink, but emotionally I was not sober. I was like running around with someone from the program for a short time, and that was really, really toxic. He was narcissistic. I put myself in a lot of danger. So, and, like I put him in danger because he stopped focusing on his recovery and focusing on me. So, yeah. So back to my first sponsor. I'm working with my sponsor. I'm taking some steps. I'm really still not connected in meetings. Like I kind of figured out what people wanted to hear. Like I would listen to what other people shared and I was like, okay, like I get it. I get how to, how to give them what they want. So, so I do that. I just kind of regurgitate good things that I heard and people are just so proud of me and they're giving me hugs. And then around rolls May of 2020. So the world has been shut down for a couple months. I'm living in the casita in Johnny and Candy's backyard. I finally, gotten away from the toxic. I set boundaries. I stuck to them. I'm just a girl living in her best friend's backyard, and I'm not going to meetings, and I'm not really calling my sponsor. I'm not praying. I'm not meditating. I'm not doing any of the things that kind of help me stay sober for that 11 months. I'm not really thinking about what it was like just the June before, the desperation and the hopelessness. I'm thinking I'm bored and I'm lonely, and I'm thinking, I reach out to an old guy friend from Bullhead City. He had kind of been trying to get a hold of me, and I was just kind of blowing him off. So I ended up texting him or giving him a call, and we reconnected. And we were talking, and he said, when the world opens back up, you should definitely come in here. And I'm like, well, why wait till then? Nobody really determines what's essential. Like, it's essential to me that I go up there. And so there's my, I'm not drinking yet, but there's my selfish, self-centered. And I kind of start talking to him about how, I've been sober, but I would kind of like to try drinking again. And he doesn't know how to deal with that. So I'm just setting up my relapse. Like, I decided before it happened that it was going to happen. So yeah, May of 2020, I fly up to Seattle, Washington, and I hang out with this old friend. We were friends for 20 years, but we didn't talk during that 20 years, but every, 3 to 5 years. And when you talk to somebody, then like, that's just the good stuff, right? You just get the good parts of a person. So not taking away from our friendship, but we weren't like day to day, seeing the good, bad, and ugly of each other. So we hit it off while I was visiting. I went back to Vegas, talked to Candy and Johnny, packed up my shit, and moved to Linwood, Washington. And the day I got there, I have a Boston Terrier. He has a Boston Terrier. They did not get along. So my Boston had just gotten into a huge fight with her littermate sister, Penelope. And Penelope lost her eye. And I had to leave. Well, I had to leave one with my ex, the ex-fiance, and he asked if he could have Penelope because she was much sweeter to him than my little feisty Luna. So I've got this dog. She's an angry little thing. So we try to introduce the dogs. His dog Opie was the sweetest boy, but definitely they both wanted to be the boss. So they start fighting, and I'm instantly ready to drink. So like right away, I'm noticing that like I have not thought this through. And I just want to escape. I just want to feel different. I'm just overwhelmed. I can't, like, I'm in a new state. I'm clear far away from everyone. I only know him. And I'm ready to drink. Our dogs don't get along. I don't know how we're going to live in a 600 square foot apartment. So I drank that day, and I woke up the next morning and I snuck some of his whiskey, even though I told myself that I know better and I'm not going to. I told myself that I wasn't going to drink like I drank before, even though what I learned before was that, once you're a pickle, you could never be a cucumber again. But I forgot about all of that. I forgot about how bad it was. And I thought it would be different because I wanted it to be different. It was not different. It was not. If I was going to drink a glass of wine, I made sure I had 2 or 3 bottles of wine. I was blacking out right away. I moved there June of 2020, and we got married August of 2020. During that time, like, we got married by a waterfall on a hike. And walking out from the wedding, he fell 50 feet off of a cliff. He's fine. Like, he, got scraped up, and it was really scary. But yeah, I think because of all the Jameson that was drank down where we had the ceremony, his body was loose and he wasn't trying to brace. I don't know. But it was right when that happened where everything set in, like, you fucked up. Like, you are making horrible choices for your life. There's so much shame in the relapse, and there was shame in recognizing that, like, me and this person didn't get along very well. I'm a pretty positive person, pretty happy-go-lucky for the most part, and he's a little more down-to-earth, realistic, just on a different vibration, we'll say. We just were not compatible. I mean, we both like to hike, but aside from that, like, he worked at night, I worked earlier, like, we were on totally different. So we were trying to mesh these two lives that weren't supposed to be meshed, I think. And I really resented him. I resented myself. And in my blackouts, I was really horrible to him. I don't remember, but I've heard all about it. I hated being up there. I just wanted to go back to Vegas. Like, I hated my choices. I hated myself. In my blackouts, I was also reaching out to my mom and threatening suicide, basically. So I knew I needed to do something. So my then husband was telling me, like, you need to quit drinking. And I'm not wanting to let go. Like, I know it's so much better on the other side, but I'm just not willing to let go. So I finally work up the courage. And in November of 2020, I go to a meeting. And I went every day. We had shut down. So that's an important part of the story. November of 2020, we had our second shutdown. So I should include November of 2020, second shutdown. So I had to work on the last day. I think it was a Tuesday. And it was the last day that we could serve. And I just had this, like, the world is ending feeling. And I'm like, like, I'm not going to be able to come to work. Like, that's where my socialization is. Like, I'm going to be in that apartment. The dogs are, like, tied up at opposite ends of the living room. I'm gonna be home, and he's gonna be my only contact with the world. Like, this is messed up. Like, I can't do this. So I start drinking as soon as I get there, as soon as I got to my shift. And yeah, I don't remember too far into it. But I was a real big lights are on but nobody's home kind of drinker. So I know that he came in sometime during the shift, and, like, I just disgust just showed all over my face. I was really, I was bad to him, and I think it was, mostly because of my choices, because I just knew that I was doing the opposite of what I needed to be doing. So yeah, I wake up the next day, and I'm supposed to go into inventory everything. Like, I'm meeting up with my friend and coworker, and I'm supposed to inventory everything, and I feel like death. So I do get myself, oh no, I think he drove me home, so my car was maybe still there, I'm not sure. But I'm talking to her, and I'm crying, and I'm just thinking, like, I need to get back to Vegas. I need to get out of here. And I didn't know how I closed the night before, and it turns out a coworker had come in and saw that I was struggling, and so she took over the end of my shift and closed everything out. So yeah, I knew then that I just needed to get to AA. I knew that was the one place, like, that was the last place, because if I stayed at home during that shutdown, and if I drank the way that I drank, I don't think that I would have continued living. I think I would have seen just one way out, and it was not was not the way I wanted to go. So the only other option for me was AA. So I went to a meeting and it felt uncomfortable and it felt awkward, and I went the next day and I went the next day, and I ended up getting COVID and I couldn't go. So I did get on Zoom. During that time, I reached out there. Wait, no, I didn't get COVID yet. So I was going to meetings through November. The then husband and I had a trip planned to go to Vegas. And so we go to Vegas, and that's the first time I've drank in front of people. I relapsed while we were there. I was going to the bar and I was out with my ex-father-in-law and my ex-husband's family and friends. We went to Bullhead for a couple days, and that's where I drank. I was getting everybody refills on their drinks, and I was having a Virgin Bloody Mary. And then one time while going to get refills, I ended up just getting a double for myself. And then I managed to say something to where I was like, hey, I'm drinking. And he asked, are you sure? Are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'll just get back to it when we get home. So that trip, I maintained fairly well. But once we got back to Vegas and I was drinking with my friends, there's no pictures of my ex-husband. Like I was in the zone, and I didn't really get out of control. I didn't, I just internally I was struggling. So then fly back to Seattle. And as soon as I got back, I just wanted to get into a meeting. I wanted to tell on myself, and I wanted to get to work. So I got back, and my first meeting was December 10th, 2020, where I went in ready to not live the way that I had been living. Right after that, I asked a woman to sponsor me. I had seen her before I had relapsed that second time. And she seemed really tough. She seemed pretty intimidating, and she seemed really serious about her recovery. And I really wanted that. I didn't want the have fun and I didn't want the, messing around. I wanted the straight, hard, dig deep sobriety. I wanted recovery. So I started working with her, and by February, my marriage was over. We fought about everything, but once I wasn't drinking, I didn't really express myself. Like, I didn't speak up when stuff drove me nuts, but it was a lot of like passive aggressive disrespect. So yeah, we were in a fight one morning, and I said, I think that we need therapy. And he said, I think you need therapy because you're the one with the problem. And that was like my big out. That was my big excuse of like, oh, well, he's not willing to work on this. And he said, I think we need a divorce. And I felt so much relief. Like, I didn't want to be the bad guy. I didn't want to hurt him, but being with him was hurting him. Like, living like that was damaging to both of us. But when he said, I think we need a divorce, I said, I think you're right. And so we kind of just came up with, we'll figure it out in the coming weeks. But we separated at that time. So I was just kind of going through my options, but this time I'm not just getting an idea and jumping right to it. I have a sponsor, I have a home group, I have service positions, I'm working steps. It was only 2 months in, but I was relentless, like gratitude list in the morning, 5 things I did for my recovery, at night. And just I put all of my energy into my recovery. I stopped worrying about everything else. And it was my saving grace. Because I made it through that divorce without getting drunk. So it turned out I was going to move out. I was looking for a place. I had money saved, and he had a friend who had a house he was going to rent out. We were actually planning to move into the house, but then, he said, I think I'm going to find a roommate and just move in there myself. I want to have a shop and a yard for the dog and blah, blah, blah. And so that was the plan, but the place wasn't going to be available until June. And we're in February. So, we agree that we're going to just coexist in this 600 square foot garage conversion apartment until he can move out. Now that was the hard part. Really, that was a really painful time. Knowing that the situation wasn't right for me, but seeing that somebody else was hurting, doing my best to just focus on myself, doing my best to set and hold boundaries, doing my best to still treat him with like love and respect and like a person that I've loved for 20 years, and still not be a doormat. I didn't really know how to have boundaries. It was like I'm either a doormat or I'm a brick wall. And so I really tried to find a middle ground, and I had to just, I had to seek love. So I, during that time, started listening to the teachings of Ram Dass, and I started listening to a lot of Abraham Hicks, and I was reading a whole lot of books. And come June, he kind of tried to say that he wasn't going to move out, and I got to hold a boundary and say, you cannot stay here. I have a lease. This is my place now. So you do have to move out. Because I did not want, I lived on the couch and he lived in the room, and it was a really painfully uncomfortable situation for 4 months. So he did move out, but the day he moved out, there was a great big fight. I stopped feeling safe. So I set a big boundary of, for my space, and I held it. And while that continued to be toxic until I drew a firm line, that was the smartest thing that I did next to getting sober, was just separating myself, eliminating. In a lot of my breakups, there was a whole lot of false hope. There was a lot of things getting dragged on to where, thinking that they would rekindle. And I didn't want to do what I felt had been done to me. I didn't want to be the person that was like, oh, you're hurting, let me try to make you feel better. So in the most loving way that I knew how, I just worked on loving myself. And I was doing really intense work, and I was, doing my steps, like I said, and really getting to know myself. Once he moved out, like I didn't get a TV for, I don't know, it was like 3 or 4 months or something, but I just meditated and I read. Around that time, it was around the time that we split, that I just met my now husband. But I made it clear that I was not in a space to date or entertain or anything like that. So he was just a customer at the bar. He's a coach at the college right behind the bar that I worked at. So him being around was nice, but it felt really good to say, like, I'm just working on myself right now. So yeah, I think I finished my steps in, I don't want to say finished, but I took my 12th step and started raising my hand to work with other women in May of 2021. And started dating Scott in June. We went on a date, and it was definitely different than what I thought it would be like, because I was different than I had ever been. Surrendering to and conceding to my innermost self that I'm an alcoholic, that my choices have determined my outcomes, that I've been driven by my ego and my self-centeredness and, being a martyr and thinking that I'm doing good for other people when really I'm either people pleasing or I'm out to get what I want. And there might be some good consequences for you along the way. Is really getting to know my part, like my side of the street, like recognizing what my actions have brought about in my life. Like it brought this huge change, and I got to show up as the person that I wanted to be, not that I thought somebody else wanted me to be. Like it was the first time in my life that I actually had an idea of like who I was. And in doing my step work, I also had an ideals list, where you really look at your past relationships and then you have an idea of for the future of like, what am I willing to accept? What am I not willing to accept? Like what values are of the utmost importance to me? And before it was really just, what can I get from you, or what can I give to you? How are you going to make me feel? How am I going to feel about myself while I'm with you? And this wasn't that. Like this, we took things slow at first and really just felt each other out and asked each other questions and just got to know each other. And it was the best thing. It's the best thing I did besides getting sober was, getting to know Scott and falling in love and getting married. So, fast forward to it was July 30th of 2022. We got married in his parents' backyard. And this was amazing because we had both, like our whole family. I was really, there was a couple people that were missing. There was one, really big person that was missing. But he was there in my heart. But yeah, we had almost everybody there, which I was blown away because I always felt, through my 20s and my early 30s, I kind of felt like part of my family had rejected me, when in reality I had rejected them, like through my projecting. Like I thought that they didn't want me around, or that they didn't approve of me, but I wasn't giving them that chance. Like I didn't even give them the opportunity. I just withdrew myself from my family. So having everybody there was magical. And I love his family. Like they accepted me right away as one of their own. It's been quite a trip. So a week before our wedding, there's a lot of planning, and with family flying in and driving in from out of state and from, the whole west side of the country. Scott got a job offer from Texas A&M Corpus Christi. So I had been to Corpus in like 2016 and 17 because the guy that one of the guys I dated he grew up here, and his family's from here. And there was big talk of he and I moving down here. So I'd spent a little bit of time here, and I was, when he said, "What do you think about Corpus Christi?" I said, "I almost moved there. Let's do it." So not only were we now planning, 100-person wedding, but we're also figuring out where we're going to move, when we're going to move. I'm leaving my job that I love. I've got amazing coworkers, amazing, my bosses are amazing. And I love I love my regulars, my cabin cronies, and the people at the Bulldog. And so it was a big choice, but, I prayed on it. I meditated on it. He and I talked on it, and it seemed right for the advancement, for the next step in his career. He went from being, the head coach at a junior college for 10 years to the pitching coach at a Division I college. So this is just a step in the right direction, for him to get into D1 baseball. So we got married, and then we spent 3 weeks packing and arranging and saying our see you soons. And then we moved to Corpus. And this is where the podcast was born, because in the time where I didn't quite have a job, and I know that I have like this message and I have this desire to help other people. I didn't know if it was going to be on a stage, or if it was going to be in a book, or if it was going to be on a blog, but I just knew that like there's so much more that I didn't include in this story, like in this one show. But I have a lot of experience in some really rocky parts of life, and I made it out, and I can look back at it lovingly and go, wow, like I chose that, and now I get to choose differently. Like now I don't, I can catch when I'm judging, or I can catch when I'm self-seeking, and I can turn it over. Like I have a power greater than myself that, is the director of my life. Like my ego is not running my show. I don't have to react to everything that comes into my space. I'm able to, respond. And I'm able to choose differently today. I don't always have great days, but I definitely have tools. Because of the work that I've done, I have tools so that I know how to deal with life on life's terms. And sharing this story with you is just another one of those tools, because my story can benefit others. Like that's in the AA promises, that's in the 9th step promises, and I fully believe that. Like I don't regret the past, and I don't wish to shut the door on it, because I can see how my experience can benefit others. So yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of stories from that story that I'll get to tell you over time, but that's the great big nutshell of it. So thank you for letting me share. And please feel free to email me or to comment with any questions, or I don't want to say concerns. There's plenty to be concerned about, but everything did turn out great. So once again, thank you for being here. This podcast project has my heart on fire. So if you're listening, thank you.